Hi, I'm Beth from Sew Country, and today's tutorial is the third sewing marathon for 2024. So excited for this one. This is the book Bestie from Carolina Little Stitches. I bought this pattern as soon as it came out, and I still haven't sewn it yet. I don't know why. It's a great pattern, very simple, very well written, lots of options, and just possibilities to make a great bag. When I reached out to the designer Kayla about making this tutorial for the sewing marathon, she only had one request. She said, could it please be a March for National Reading Month? I love that. That's a girl after my own heart. Reading is so important to me. It's so important to my family. We're all big readers. We love to read. And so this was wonderful. I was so excited that she came up with that idea and that thought. So March is National Reading Month. We are making the book Bestie for the Sewing Marathon. And this pattern is great for those of us whenever we're giving gifts for Christmas or birthdays. Sew up one of these, put a book in it, and you have a beautiful gift to give someone. Such a great idea. This pattern comes in several sizes. I think it's like 4 or 5 sizes. I can't remember. Several options for the flaps. She gives you all the pattern pieces. It's just a really great pattern in my opinion. I am doing the large version. I'm doing several things different to mine. I just want to have fun with this. And so for mine, I'm going to point out the things that are different just so you know. But we're going to start going over the pieces now and just jump right into it. So for the flap, I'm using the rounded flap. This is the biggest flap option. So I wanted the bigger option because my magnet is very large. So for mine, I'm using everything cotton canvas. This gorgeous print is from Retro Stitch, and I do not know if it comes through on video how gorgeous this is. But this print actually, it looks almost as if it's glowing. This is a cotton canvas. That is my favorite material to work with these days. I did go ahead and interface the lining piece for this flap with a medium weight interfacing. I chose Royal Pixie Light, and then I added one layer of Thermolan onto the exterior. That is to just give a little bit of an extra feel, and plus if you use this for a Kindle or something like that, a little more protection and security. So 2 flap pieces, exterior and lining. The next piece you will have is going to be just your main piece. I don't know what's called, maybe main body. I did mine differently. In the pattern, this is written so that this is the way it'll go, and your flap would be here, so you kind of put your books in here. I really wanted it to go this way, with this being the bottom, the flap being up here to the top. The reason why is I'm back and forth as to if I'm going to add grommets after I'm done with this in a strap to carry it as a crossbody for when me or my daughter, if she wants this, and I'm going to let her see if she would want it, if I'd want it, if we wanted to add the strap to carry our book with us when we're going for a walk in the park and we want to have the book to read later, or if we're going out on an errand and want to keep the book with us. So that is why I wanted my print to go this way, but do note, if you're following the pattern directions, yours would have been this way. So we have 4 of these pieces, 2 lining, 2 exterior. On the lining pieces, I'm just using that medium weight interfacing again. For the exterior, I'm going to use that Thermolan, or it's like a fleece on the back. As always, I'm using the exterior and the lining the same, pretty standard for me, and so I'm doing that the same with this one. That's all the pieces you really need to create this pattern. I am going to add a zipper pocket on the back of this, so I'm choosing to have 2 zipper pocket pieces. I just rough cut these, didn't measure them. It's just the cotton canvas, no interfacing at all on them. Because I am doing that zipper pocket, I also wanted to do a zipper overlay just to make it a little bit fancier. So this will be on the back, a piece of vinyl. I just actually used the template from the Fundamentals tote from Leslie from Jolie Creations. I stole that template from that pattern and cut out a piece of vinyl. I'm going to put it on this one. I'm sure Leslie will not mind. So I have that there. I am also going to use piping around my flap. This is vinyl. It is a very thick vinyl. I really typically wouldn't do this, but I feel like with this pattern, not having a lot of bulk, not having a lot of tricky spots, it'll be okay. I will not put anything inside of this vinyl. It'll just be an empty piece that I'll fold in half, and I will sew around the curve of that flap to make a row of piping, just to give a little bit of extra color, and especially since I'm using the same print throughout. If I was using a contrast for the flap, I wouldn't need the piping, but since I'm choosing to do it all the same, I wanted the piping. For tags, I am going to be using Heartwood and Hide tags. If you've been watching my videos, you know I'm kind of into tags right now. I'm actually going to be putting 4 tags in this bag in total. 3 will be from Heartwood and Hide. 1 will be from Carolina Little Stitches, and that will be my first time adding a woven tag to a bag. I've never used one before, so I'm excited to play around with that. For the cork tags from Heartwood and Hide, I have this one that says Just One More Chapter, which is perfect fitting. I have my own personal tag here, So Country, and then I have one for the Marathon Society because that is who puts on all these sewing marathons. I wanted to have these two just have a little bit of extra vinyl around. All I did was glue these tags onto the vinyl. I always use this Beacon 3-in-1 glue, just put a little bit on there. I will stitch around the cork tags. Then I will trim off the extra on this vinyl. I am undecided just yet if I'm going to sew this vinyl onto the material or if I'm even going to use just a small rivet to make it even a little bit more fancy. I haven't decided yet. I'll be thinking about that. What I'm going to do is this label will be on the outside, this label will be on the flap, and this label will be on the inside. Then we have the woven label from Carolina Little Stitches that I'm going to have on the outside as well. So this is going to be really cute. I know we both will love to have this in our bag. Since I'm adding a zipper to the back pocket of my bag, I'm using a number 5 zipper from So Majestic. Amber is someone who does the marathons here with us, and I love all her zippers. I use them in almost all my bags. I'm going to be using this amazing book pull. I'm not for sure exactly where I got this from, and I'm so sorry. If you really need it, I will find out, but I don't know. And the last thing I'm doing is I'm going to be adding this amazing magnet from Natural Nerd. You can see this magnet is stunning. This is why I wanted that big flap, because this is a huge magnet. Her magnets are amazing. She does all her own artwork, so you can't get anything like this except from her. It's all exclusive stuff, and I just love her hardware. It's something I will splurge on every time she comes out with new stuff. I just love it. I'm going to go ahead and get started by sewing around each of these tags and figuring out where I'm going to put them, trimming them down, figuring out where they're all going to go on the back, and then we'll come back and get started sewing everything up. So off camera, I went ahead and sewed around both of these tags and trimmed them down. I like to add the contrast just so whenever I have a busy print, it just kind of pops a little bit better. So let's go over, and I want no one judging me that I have 4 tags going into this one tiny bag. No judgment here. So here is the exterior flap. I am not putting the tag on here. This is going to be reserved only for that huge magnet that I'm doing. So I'm going to set this aside, but I wanted to keep it out just to show you that since my print is directional, my exterior will be this way, but my lining will be this way, so that whenever I flip up the lining, it looks just as beautiful as the exterior. So if your print is directional, make sure you take that into consideration. So for this, I know my magnet will probably be down low, probably no higher than this area right here. So I'm going to put my tag closer to the top. So the first thing I'll do is I'll just find my center. I'm not going to make any like clips or snips or anything or any marks. I'm just going to put that clip there. And I want my tag to probably be around there centered. For this exterior piece, I am going to wait to attach the tag. It'll probably go around here, but I want to wait until I get that zipper overlay on first to make for sure I have a placement that I like. For this tag, I've seen a lot of people do this, and I think it's really cute. that you have it just hanging down a little bit. So that is what I think I'll do for these two tags. For the one that's going to go inside though, I'm just going to place it centered, kind of high up at the top, so when I look in the bag, I can see it right away. This will be the back lining piece. So when you open the little bag up, that'll be the first thing you see. So I'm going to go off camera and I'm going to sew on both of my tags. I'm also going to, off camera, figure out the placement for this overlay. I'm not going to sew it on yet. I'll come back and we'll sew it together, but I don't want to be measuring and having a ruler out while I'm on camera, so I'll figure out that placement, then we'll come back and talk about how that zipper overlay is going to be sewn on. Is anyone else looking at these tags and thinking, oh my gosh, she's going to ruin this like really cool pattern by having weird placements of 500 tags? Is anybody else thinking that, or is it just me? Because I'm starting to think that. Okay, let's move on. My tags for the flap and the interior are done. Now what we're going to do is we're going to attach this overlay to the exterior of this bag. This is a place where a lot of people use double-sided tape. If you know me, I don't use double-sided tape. I'm not against it. It's just harder for me. It truly is. I struggle. I get it everywhere. My machine doesn't like it, so I don't use it. You can see right now my vinyl is curling up. This is a thick vinyl. This is a stretchy vinyl. I have my measurements. I have it where I want, but I'm going to have to be careful because I do not want this to stretch. If you have stretchy vinyl, you can interface it to get rid of that stretch to help. I'm not going to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm using a skinny foot. By using a skinny foot, that means that less amount of pressure will be pulling on this vinyl and stretching it out. That's the first thing that's going to help me. The second thing that will help me is I'm going to turn my stitch length up higher than what I usually have it. I usually have it around a 3.5. I'm going to go up to a 4. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to sew slow. If you're sewing slow, you're holding things down. You're not pushing against like the feed dogs here. You're not pushing and pulling. You're just helping guide. You're just giving a little extra assist on that. By going slow, that means it's going to be less pulling and dragging, more time for me to be cautious and correct. I'm going to be taking the time with this so I have the least amount of stretch, the least amount of shifting, in hopes of getting a better stitch on this. I'm going to be stitching this first row of stitching all around the exterior of the perimeter of this zipper overlay. When I get down here to the bottom, I'm going to slip in this tag. The raw edge will go just under this bottom edge of this overlay, and then I'll stitch over it to secure it in place. I'll cover up the Carolina Little Stitches logo there and have that covering up, so just the words will be peeking down below. So we're going to do this. I'm going to do this on camera, but I'm going to speed it up just so you're not waiting the whole time. But just know I'm going slow. I'm going to pull my threads long so that I can pull them back, slowly going under here so that I don't have any shifting. You can see since I don't have tape, I just want to be really careful with this. I'm going to be going right along the edge. Since I have an 1/8 of an inch foot, I will line up the edge of my foot with the edge of that vinyl, going slowly. That'll be about an 1/8 of an inch away from me from that raw edge. When I get to the corners and they're just slightly curved, I'm just going to pivot and shift a little at a time to try to get a good curve on this. Now I'm just now rounding that curve on the bottom. Once I get that curve rounded there on the bottom, I will come as close as I can. Let's lift up my foot because I really want this close to that curve. I'm just going to slip this underneath there. Try to make sure it's straight. It looks so cute. And I'm going to put the foot down and I'm just going to start going over there to have that attached in place. I never worry about going fast. For me, sewing is therapy. Imagine every single stitch you take, just some of the frustrations and the worries of the day going away. It's Zen sewing. For me, I would much rather go slow and take more time here than be frustrated having to work with my seam ripper later or be aggravated by some of the stitches. So it's not a race, and the only thing you're trying to compare yourself to is how you did yesterday. Are you making improvements within your own sewing room? Okay, so we have our zipper lay on, and I just think it's gorgeous. I love it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold this in half. Let me get my good scissors out. And I'm just going to make a cut there in the middle. So once I make that cut in the middle, I am very carefully, when I say careful, I mean careful. This part always makes me extremely nervous because there's so much potential to mess up here. What you want to do is you can't cut that overlay, but you need to cut all the fabric around there. So I will take my time, and I typically do about 1/4 of an inch all the way around this overlay. So whenever I get done, and I'll show you, I'll do all this off camera, but I'll show you when I'm done, I will have just about 1/4 of an inch all the way around of this exterior piece showing from those stitches I did. That means my box will be completely open there. So I will do that off camera and then come back and show you. Before I do that though, let's go ahead and pull out that zipper and our 2 zipper pocket pieces. Like I said, I just rough cut these. One of mine will be shorter than the other the way I have it cut and the way it's going to go in here. I didn't care enough to measure that. I'll just trim it off, just so you know that. When we're doing a zipper pocket like this, we sew it a little bit differently. So I have the zipper pocket piece face up. I put my zipper pocket face up, and then I'm just going to sew this on with 1/4 of an inch seam allowance is how I'm doing that. Lining up those raw edges there. And let's sew across. Let me make sure it's kind of centered on there. And just sew across here. This is not in the pattern, so I'm not giving away any details or any measurements that she has. This is what that first piece looks like. What I do now is I fold it back and press that, and then I tack that lining pocket piece to this zipper so it lays flat. This isn't a necessary step, it's just always the way I do it. Anytime I'm doing a zipper overlay, I do it this way. So now I'm just going to stitch about 1/8 of an inch away from this zipper edge, and that will tack this exterior down, the zipper down, so it'll be just kind of a nice flat opening for when I attach it to the overlay. So that is how that looks. If you get confused, just remember when you open your zipper, you want to see the pretty side of your material. So let's do this other pocket the same way. You come to that other edge that's unsewn. You have that other zipper pocket face up. My print's directional, so of course I have my print going the way I want, so this is the way it would be whenever I open the zipper pocket. Line everything up. I'm lining up that raw edge of the zipper with the fabric. I'm also making sure that my short edges are lined up too. I didn't cut this perfectly, so it's not too big of a deal, but I wanted to make sure it's kind of decently measured up and decently lining up, I should say. Same thing, 1/4 of an inch seam allowance all the way down here. Open everything up and go ahead and do that 1/8 of an inch stitch again. At this point, I'm going to grab that zipper pull and add it on here. You may notice, and if you haven't, I'm going to point it out so you do notice. My finishes on my zipper tape, my zipper pull, and even my magnet are all different. If that annoys you, I do apologize. I didn't mean for it to be that way. I just couldn't get everything in the same finish, and I thought, you know what? I want these. I'm doing it how I want to do it. It's going to be mine or my daughter's. So I love everything to match, but I also wanted to use a book zipper pull. I also wanted to use a book magnet, and so I just said it'll be okay, and I'm going to do it. So that is how my zipper pocket looks. I still need to cut out this piece. Before I do, let's go ahead and figure out where we want that final tag to go before we get all this attached. So I think it would just be perfect in the middle, just a little bit lower there. So let's just fold this together, find that center spot, and then just come up from that center and add the tag there. I think that looks great. Yeah, maybe it's not perfect, but I like it and it's good enough for me. It makes me happy. Now I'm going to stitch around this tag. I'll do that off camera, pull the threads back and everything, and then also off camera I'll cut this out, and when we come back I'll show you what I have, and then we will talk about how we're going to add that zipper pocket to this overlay. The back of this bag is just looking so cute. I do feel like I'm probably spending way too much time on all these steps. We haven't even started any of the steps for the actual pattern. I'm sorry. We'll start getting on it. But first, we're going to add the lining for this pocket. So I will have my exterior right sides up. I'm going to flip this up and then just slide this underneath here. So I want my zipper to be closing to the left, so I'll have that orientated that way. You can see the zipper is up, both the lining pieces are wrong side up, and they're opened flat. I just lay this on there. I put those zipper teeth exactly in the middle of the opening. I don't use any glue, any tape, or anything like that. I'm going to make sure that this is kind of centered, and it is. I'm going to be trimming everything up anyway, so it's not too big of a deal. But I just want to make sure I have enough teeth hanging over each side so when I go around here there's no chance of it slipping through. So I'll take this entire portion over to the sewing table, and then I'm going to start sewing probably around right here. My foot's 1/8 of an inch, so it's going to go right up against this raw edge, and I'm just going to sew all the way around. I'm going to have this at about a 3.5. And I'm just going to stitch slowly all around that opening, making sure I shift my teeth if they start slipping out of the way of the center of this opening. Okay, so now we have that zipper attached to the bag. All we have to do is close up this pocket. Since this bag is not typically having a pocket, we don't need to worry about leaving an opening. All we're going to do is we are going to take that top piece, fold it down. Like I said, I knew mine would be need to be trimmed up because I did not account for that folding down. Not worried about it. Didn't want to waste that energy. I'm going to put these clips on here. I'm going to trim up the bottom, and then I'm going to sew down these 3 sides to close up this pocket completely. I'm going to do that off camera just because I'm taking a little bit of extra time in this video doing other things, and I don't waste your time, but it's just going to be probably about, let's see, I want to make sure that I get as close as I can to there, so I'll be trimming down quite a bit for me to make sure that I close everything up. So that's how I'll finish that. I'll do that off camera, and then that will complete this back portion. I have to admit, it's beautiful. I love it, love it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to work on our flat. I'm going to take out the exterior, and that's what I want to attach the piping to. I feel like in all my videos I'm talking about piping these days. It's just something I'm really enjoying, and I know I sound like a broken record by saying please try piping, please try piping. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. I do not pay any attention to how long I cut this. I just cut it. I think, yeah, I'm pretty sure I cut this 1 inch wide. It really doesn't matter. If you want a bigger piping, if you want a smaller piping, fat, skinny, whatever you want, it's okay. It's not going to mess it up. So what I'll do is I'll just start by folding it wrong sides together, and I'll have a little bit of overhang. I do this very simply by just basting. So let's go ahead and take this over to the machine instead of just talking about it. Let's just start doing it. Hang a little bit over there. Try to keep those raw edges together. Not too big of a deal if they slip a little bit. You could put a clip there if you wanted to. Why I'm not worried about is because that part's going to be caught in the seam lines. It's not going to show, so it doesn't matter at all to me. But anyway, I am just going to base. So I'm just going to do 1/8 of an inch to get this attached. We're going to be sewing here through the 2 layers of vinyl and the 1 layer of this exterior all the way around. I will just sew this while going and closing those edges together. I won't go fast, I'll go slow. If this bothers you, of course you could sew the piping down first, or you could use tape, glue, whatever you wanted, clips, whatever makes you feel more comfortable. I'm kind of lazy, and so I just kind of go with it on the fly, I guess you could say, because I don't want to waste the time clipping or taping or gluing. Since this bag has a wonderfully shaped flap, I do not have to worry about how the piping will kind of lay around that flap. It's the perfect curve for it. A nice, smooth, easy curve, not too tight, so there won't be any rippling or bumping. Since this vinyl is such a thick vinyl, it's going to have that 3-dimension look already. Definitely do not need to add any cording into this. When we're coming up to this edge, make sure you try to keep everything lined up with that curve, and don't skip out and miss any of the curve. You want to keep all of the shape of the flap, so you just slowly match it up, the raw edges. I lost my bobbin just a little bit there, so I gotta reload that and finish it. But even despite that, you can see how easy it is to add piping. If you take anything away from this video, it is to learn how to add piping to a bag. It's fun. You're using up scraps of vinyl. You're just adding a unique look to any pattern. It's just fun, guys, and you can see how easy and quick it is. I'm going to trim off this overhang here. I'm going to change out my bobbin, of course, so I can finish up my piping. So what I'm going to do is, after I change the bobbin, I will just place this right sides together. Now at this point, you're going to want to go ahead and use the seam allowance in the pattern. This is the first time we're using the seam allowance in the pattern. If you are worried, you would want to make for sure that you don't lose all your piping. Even if just a little bit peeks out, it looks great. But just make for sure to check that you're not going to. It will be fine if you need to use the math. If you're concerned, the math is that you want to make sure that you can get your seam allowance and still have a little bit of piping peeking out. It's not that hard, so don't stress it. Just try it and start practicing with it. After I fixed the bobbin, I went ahead and basted the rest of the piping onto the flap. It looks great. I love this vinyl with that canvas. It's just the perfect color, I think. So this will be my exterior. It is done. I trimmed up the piping on the edges. So now what I'll do is I'll take that interior flap piece. I will lay them right sides together, and I'm just going to put a few clips in place to hold everything secure. And now we're going to sew around with the full seam allowance given in the pattern. After we do this, we will turn this and then top stitch all the way around. So we will start sewing on one corner here at the top, back stitch, go all the way around, back stitch at the other top. We'll leave this opening completely open, and that's how we'll turn it. So I can definitely see I have more here than I have here, but a little trick I'll do is I will just kind of tuck it in a little bit, and so whenever I top stitch around, it'll be a little bit more hidden and it'll be fine. Okay, I'm good with that. I like it. Let's look at the back. You can see a little bit more of that piping's hanging out. Push it down just a little. I could redo it. I'm not going to. I'm not a perfectionist. So now that I have this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to top stitch 1/8 of an inch away from the canvas, not from the piping. I'm not sewing at all on the piping, just on the canvas. So ignore that. For me, I'll just make sure that that edge of my foot is lined up with that folded edge of the canvas all the way around. I go slow here where it is a curve. I don't want to lose my my seam allowance there. Make sure it's a nice even stitch. Okay, I'm leaving my top open because I still need to add that magnet. This is by far going to be the trickiest part of this for me. I am extremely nervous when it comes to attaching hardware like this, but I'm trying to push myself, get out of the comfort, get out of my comfort zone, because it does make for just a gorgeous addition to a bag. This will be the maybe fourth magnet that I have attached to bags like this. Each time it makes me nervous. Each time I'm always glad I did. I am not going to add anything around it because I feel like it doesn't need it. I feel like it stands out enough on its own. I'm not going to add any other additions to it. So the first thing I want to do is I want to kind of get my placement. Let me go ahead and make a center mark here at the bottom too. I have one at the top, but let's make one at the bottom also to just kind of know where I want to place this. I don't want to be too far down, but I definitely don't want to go too far up. I want to make sure that none of the piping is in the bulk of where I'm adding this, because it's going to be enough to go through both of these layers as it is. So I'm thinking right around here. So that's low enough. I'm going to make sure it's perfectly centered. I'm going to take time to measure everything up. And then I'm also going to kind of trace an outline here. Okay, my measurement looks really good. So I'm going to find my chalk and just make a couple of marks to kind of know where this one, I want it to go on this. This is just some rough marks here. So I'm going to go off camera and take off the screws and separate these two pieces, and then we'll come back with the next steps. So I took the 4 screws out. I used this little tool here and I set the screws aside. I definitely don't want to lose those. So then the next thing you do is you're just going to separate these two pieces just like this. You're going to get the magnets out. There are 2 magnets, of course, in here, the front, the male and the female, the front and the back, however you want to call it. I'm going to use the flatter portion to go on this piece, so that'll be the male. So it will go on the flap. The female, I will save it for the front of the bag. What we do is we're going to go ahead and slip that in there. You can see it fits kind of flush. Put your washer on your back, and I'm going to go ahead and push my prongs to the outside. Now this is a little tricky, because it's high quality. It's not like the cheap kind. Get that flush. So that is the first part. You got that. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the placement where I want these holes to go. I'm laying that on there. Let me make sure I have it orientated the right way, because I did that wrong with my last one. Yes, that's the right way. I'm going to get my little silver marking tool and mark those 4 holes there. I'm going to get my hole puncher here. Now I just get this on Amazon, but I don't want to use that very small one. I want to use a bigger hole punch, because if you can look right here on the back, I really want these raised pieces to go all the way through. That will be the easiest way for me to do this, if these can fit through the hole. Not just that opening there, but the entire portion here. So that's what I want. So I want to make a little bit bigger holes than I typically would make if I was just doing a rivet. So I'm going to go in through all the layers and poke these holes. For those upper holes, I just kind of fold this in here so I can get it through the neck of that. Just want to make sure I got them all to go through. Let's go ahead and get that extra trimmed out. It didn't cut through all the way. Okay, now you can put fray check or a little bit of glue, anything you want, around these openings here. After you do that, or if you're like me and choose not to do that, that's fine. We're not going to judge here. What I want is I want to push that through. You can see it coming through there. I'm going to try to get them all 4 to come through before I add my screws. I'm going to lay it down to try to help me get this to happen. Sometimes they'll slip back up ahead of time. It happens. It's okay. I'm not going to stress it. I want to make sure that I have this going the way I want it to go, the same way. So you can see these are like the hands that are going down. So that should fit perfectly. I'm going to get this to try to get all those threads out of the way. See how you don't want the extra fabric there. This is the hardest part. If you wanted to, you could take a little bit of glue and kind of glue around there. I get a little nervous with gluing around here because I'm afraid I would glue, like get glue in the opening and not be able to then get the screw in there. So usually what I'll do, I'll be honest, is I do one of these at a time and then just keep fiddling and getting all the others around there is what I typically do. So I'm going to start with the first one. I put it in place there. I get my screw and simply put it on top and then just screw that one in place. I want it to go tightly, so I screw until it's kind of snug and I can't get it any further. I'm going to kind of make sure I got it going the right way. Everything looks great. The first one's in. I'm going to go off camera and do these other 3 and get this magnet installed the exact, doing it the exact same way with each screw going in. So I got that magnet completely installed. The last 2 always give me a little bit of grief because things might want to shift and there might be a little more fabric that you have to kind of get out of the way. So just make sure you trim up the fabric around the holes and take your time getting them in. I use my stiletto to just kind of make sure I got a clear shot and could see the opening of the other side clearly to attach that magnet. So there's the magnet on the flap. I have not attached it to the exterior front yet. I'm actually going to wait until I get this attached to kind of eyeball it there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take out this back piece, the back exterior, have it right sides up, have my magnet and my flap right sides together. So this is the exterior to exterior. We'll be looking at the lining. I'm just going to center this, clip it in place, and then I will sew across here with the seam allowance given in the pattern for this step. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and take that front lining piece and I'm going to put it right sides together with the back of the back exterior piece. So these pieces are right sides together. My flap is still lining side up. I'm going to go ahead and clip along the sides and the bottom. I will sew down the sides and across the bottom, leaving my little box corners open. This step will be the same for the lining. I'll sew down the sides of the lining and the bottom, except on the bottom I will leave an opening there. That will be where we will turn this or birth it. So we'll do those steps. I'm not going to show the lining on camera, but it is going to be the same except you leave the opening. So let's clip along here. And so these pieces, your flap should not be in your seam allowance. It should be able to stay out of it, so make for sure it doesn't get in there. And then let's go ahead and sew down the sides and the bottom of these 2 exterior pieces. Okay, now that we got everything sewn, I'm going to stick my hand in here, open it up. I'm going to open that up, butterfly these seams. You don't have to butterfly them. I'm just going to, and push them together to box those corners. You can see how the seams are going to be directly on top of each other, and to make just a cute little box corner, just give a little bit of extra depth there. I'll do the same thing on this other side. And then we're just going to sew across these boxed corners. At that point, then, I'm going to turn this exterior right sides out and figure out a decent place where I'm going to put that bottom snap of the magnet. I'm going to trim that just a little bit, just because it's a little bulky. I'm going to flip this out, and I'm just going to eyeball where I want that magnet to go. It's not going to be perfect, but it's not a big deal. It's not going to be like so off that it'll be unusable. Gosh, it looks so cute. Let's just kind of see where we want it to go. I love that. So what I'm going to do is just kind of hold that down and use my chalk to mark, and then I'll make sure it's all even and everything. So let's just fold this in half and make sure I figure out the center. Get all that squared away. Take that bottom part of the washer. If you want to use your marking tool, you can, or you can just go right in there and start seam ripping that. Just go through that one layer. Don't go through the back, of course. I'm going to go ahead and install my magnetic snap here on the front. Push it through. Get your washer, put your washer through on the back. I always push my prongs to the outside, but that it can be a personal preference, whatever you want. Okay. So now that we have that, all we have to do is get out our lining. I've already completed my lining off camera. So here is my lining with the opening there at the bottom. What I'm going to do is, like I said, I want this tag to be at the back. So I'm simply going to slip this in here, making sure that tag is on the back. I'm going to start matching everything up. I'll start with the side seams. You can butterfly, or you can have them going opposite ways and nesting, whichever is your personal preference. I'm going to nest these. I want them to go away from my flap, so because I have a little bit of extra bulk there, so I want to kind of offset that. We're pushing that exterior down in the lining, and even if it's a little bit shorter, or if it doesn't seem like it wants to go, just kind of smush it in there, because we're not worried. We just want to make sure we sew these edges together at the top. So smush in there. So my camera died while I was clipping everything together, but all I have done is clipped the lining, which is on the outside, and the exterior, which is on the inside, together, matching up that raw edge all along the top. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew around the perimeter of this bag all the way with the seam allowance given in the pattern. So I'm just going to push everything down so I can get in here and just sew in that circle, making sure I back stitch when I start and stop. When you get to the side, you'll have to start rotating the bag up. So I'm going to slowly start turning everything through the hole. I will grab one corner of that exterior and start that way. So go all the way up to the top, push out that one side first, and then get the rest of the way out. I'm going to go all around this top, making sure to push everything flat. Everything pushed out there real nice. Go on the bottom, poke out those bottom pieces. I am going to go ahead and close up my lining pocket while I have it open. I do not think it'll be a problem to go ahead and close this up now. I'm just putting my finger in there and pulling, and then I'll pinch. Add a few clips here along the bottom, and then I always just sew this about 1/8 of an inch away. Of course, you can hand sew it and do it all pretty so there's no stitches showing, but I'm not doing that today. Go ahead and tuck that lining in. You can see everything's looking great. What I'm going to do is take the time to just roll those seams And if you don't like to do it this way, you can always make sure you don't close up your opening before you do this, but I'm just going to roll them with my fingers. Take that over to the ironing board if you want. And I am comfortable with this to just top stitch from the lining side. So my bobbin will be on the bottom. My bobbin is black, so it won't cause any trouble at all. But if you wanted, you could easily flip this bag inside out to do it that way. I'm going to have a thick spot right here at that seam, so I'll be careful when I'm going over it. Since I sew on a domestic, if I want, I could even hand crank that. I bought these really nice clips. So they're strong, they're big, but they have this rubber coating so it won't damage the fabrics. So I bought them specifically at times when I want to kind of compress those seams. Now I'm not going to leave them on here long because we're doing this video, but if I was not doing a video, I would leave that on overnight to kind of compress it before I top stitch. You can see I'm just kind of pulling that out so we can get a really nice smooth finish there. I'm going to come over to this other seam. I'll put another clip there. Everything looks amazing. I'm so excited to see this finished. Let's go ahead, put this under my needle. I'm just going to do 1/8 of an inch away. I'm going to go really slow because I don't want to mess up here at the end. Now at this point you can see I'm rotating and I'm going to have this flap laying up and I'm going to pull it so I can make sure, going over that thick seam right there, but I'm going to pull this flap so I can make sure it lays really nice and flat there. I'm applying the pressure, I'm pulling, I want it really straight at this spot. Let's take the time to look at our bag. I'm going to close everything up and then I'm going to make sure that everything is in frame so we can look at it and see how beautiful it looks. Look at how gorgeous this is. I love it. I love the extra details on it. I put the magnetic snap there. It looks great. I put the piping around. I put the zipper on the back and the tags. I just think it's beautiful. Let's open it up. And it's just a completely gorgeous open bag for my book. This is for the true book lovers. We don't want anything simple. We want a fancy bag for our love of reading books. This is beautiful. Now, like I said, in the original pattern, it would be like this and you'd open it this way. But I didn't want it that way. I wanted it this way because I may end up putting grommets right here on the side, maybe a little bit lower. I'm not for sure yet, but I'm thinking about doing that. I'm going to talk to my daughter and see if she would want to wear this as a crossbody with the grommets. I love it. It's so pretty. I don't know. Maybe I'll just keep it for me. It's just beautiful. I love everything about it. I want to thank Kayla from Carolina Little Stitches for allowing us to use her pattern in today's sewing marathon. My fabric is from Retro Stitch. My hardware, this magnetic snap, is from Natural Nerd. The tag is from Carolina Little Stitches. This tag and my others inside are from Heartwood and Hyde. Zipper tape from So Majestic. Such a beautiful pattern, such a fun way to do this. I definitely will be making more. I definitely want to make another one and kind of do it the traditional side way to open. I just really wanted to do this one like this so I could just showcase the magnet and the print, and I couldn't be happier. It's gorgeous. Thank you guys for watching another one of my tutorials, and thanks for participating in the sewing marathons. I love the connection, the community. You guys always stay and chat with us and keep us company. Thank you for everyone who sewed with us today. If you guys have any suggestions of any patterns you'd like to see in a sewing marathon, let us know. And I hope today that you're able to sew something that helps you with your love of reading too. Thank you so much and have a great day.